What we've learned in the market and working with these global leaders is that the innovation agenda has moved to the boardroom and to C-level due to the pace of the external markets moving and due to competitive threats that are going on with startups that are able to fund and raise, $1 billion. The statistics suggest that if they don't change how they conduct their business operationally, that 75% of these companies who are listed on the S&P 500 today will no longer survive in a 15-year timeline. So we're working with these big companies to help them become and stay relevant. We see three key disruptors. The pace of innovation is one. Due to the massive pace that the external markets are operating with today, these companies who've been historically very successful now are challenged with these new rates of external change. So they're moving internally at a rate slower than the external rate of innovation. The second significant change that we see is digitization. If you're a company who moves very fast and you're very nimble, digitization works for you competitively. If not, it puts you at risk. We operate with clients that are working heavily in the chemical market or the CPG market, food and beverage market, high tech. A lot of these clients are dependent on satisfying consumers, and their world has changed. Historically, they in fact had market share, they had the power, and they very much controlled that consumer sentiment. But due to the massive change in the power of the consumer today, the consumer opinion is changing dramatically. And so they're challenged to tap into, to leverage, to understand and stay ahead of that consumer demand, and using that as an opportunity as opposed to a threat. This whole concept of strategic planning is very exciting. In many cases, these companies are transforming how they operationally conduct their business in the market. So let me give you an example. Traditionally, companies would provide an annual operating planning process, referred to as AOP. That process generally would take somewhere between 3 to 6 months of a year in some of these very large corporations that we work with, so 10 billion plus type companies. What has happened as a result of this significant change and need for speed and agility is they've recognized that that time scale does not help them compete in today's fast-changing market. So they've broken down that annual process, and many of the clients that we work with have applied an iterative strategic planning and execution process. Instead of taking 6 months to create a plan to react and respond to a market, the market's moving so fast that new trends and movements have occurred. So they're operating much more nimble. Once every 90 days, in fact, a number of our clients are revisiting and linking and connecting those strategic initiatives and plans with the operational execution activities. It requires these companies who are largely disconnected because they grew through acquisitions and they operate in silos. It's requiring them to change the operational model so they operate as one big entity, as an interconnected body, cross-functionally, in order to react and respond to these market conditions at a different pace. This is a massive undertaking that requires alignment. And so our software supports the need to bring this alignment, this interconnectivity, to truly collaborate cross-functionally and to synchronize, if you will, that corporate enterprise so it can move dynamically through these market conditions and these changes. This is completely different than this top-down command and control. Very critical to connect the top of the organization throughout the body of the organization to be in sync, working together as one interconnected enterprise on their innovation investment. How these bodies of people and executives are going to operate from a decision-making standpoint, a responsibility, a role standpoint, and how they communicate that governance throughout the organization is critical to the alignment and the speed for these big organizations to operate. The software that we provide is an enabling capability in the solution, but there's a behavioral and a leadership role that's critical for these enterprise companies to have sustainable growth through innovation. When we come in and start working with a client and we ask questions and we learn that they don't have governance, we take a timeout and we get the appropriate bodies in a room and say, let's talk about governance. Let's get agreement on how you're going to manage the innovation business of your enterprise. Let's document that. Let's communicate that. So that's part of the activity when we come in. They understand they have to fundamentally change these operating models. And they may not be aware how. And we come in and work with them on how to digitize, link, connect those fundamental models that I spoke to, the strat planning and the operational execution of those initiatives that allows them to operate in a much more effective and competitive manner against these disruptive factors going on outside their company.